It's the Brad Field Weather Podcast. I'm Dan Lovallo. He's Brad Field. And Brad, here we go again. We are recording this podcast at a little after 1 o'clock on October the 16th, Wednesday, and there is talk of a big storm coming our way. What can you tell us about that?
All right, Dan, we've got a double-barreled storm system. The primary storm is located over Michigan. But again, as we record this on midday Wednesday, a secondary storm is beginning to take shape near Virginia. And this secondary storm looks like it will become the main feature as it continues to track to the north and northeast, such that tonight the low pressure area should be located over New Jersey at about 8 o'clock tonight. In the middle of the night, about 2 o'clock in the morning, so this is 2 o'clock a.m. on Thursday, it looks like that low pressure center is going to be directly overhead in the state of Connecticut, Dan. By 8 in the morning, it will track on up into New Hampshire. And then by 8 in the evening on Thursday, it should be up in northern Maine and then move out on Friday up into Nova Scotia. Now, the storm has every indication of strengthening as it goes. So as the storm strengthens as it goes and gets stronger and stronger, I'm looking for a very stormy night here, featuring rain heavy at times and also the possibility of strong, and I suppose we could mention the word damaging wind gusts, but I would, I think keeping it at strong is good enough right now. We've got a wind advisory up off to our east, Dan, and they're toying with the idea of a high wind watch or a high wind warning. But again, that would be eastern Massachusetts and the coastal areas of New Hampshire. So right now, I think we're going to be far enough back to the west that I do not expect high wind warnings to go into effect here in Connecticut.
Now, what do you see in this storm? Because as you recall, last week we did our podcast, and of course all the forecasters are out there calling for this big storm. And although we did get some rain, it never really had the impact that was forecasted. So what do you see this time around to convince you that this is going to have a storm that packs a wallop?
Well, Dan, last week, to kind of put a bow around that one, the storm was expected to track to about 40-70. That's where the computer modeling had it. And we had the very heavy activity over Cape Cod, at southeastern sections of Massachusetts, but getting a pretty good blow back here in Connecticut as well. Well, the low-pressure system did not track to 40-70. It tracked about 100 miles southeast of that point. So everything was displaced. My forecast was displaced about 100 miles too far to the west. So in other words, the weather I expected back here over Connecticut was actually felt out in southeastern Massachusetts. And then Nantucket got hit pretty hard with a 60-mile-per-hour gust, and I saw a 60-mile-per-hour gust up at Wellfleet. But those hurricane-force winds stayed well offshore. So it was a matter of track last week. The track was not as I predicted, not as the computer modeling had it, but rather about 100 miles further to the east. Now, this particular system, Dan, more of a sure thing, because this is coming straight up the coast and straight over us. So this is less likely to be able to miss us. When you get this late in the ball game and you're seeing computer modeling only 6 hours before the storm, and the storm has the storm has a path coming from Virginia, tracking over New Jersey, and then tracking right overhead in Connecticut in the middle of the night, the likelihood of it being off, even if it's off by 50 miles, we're still going to get pretty well hit here in Connecticut. So I do expect heavy rain, and I also expect strong winds overnight tonight. So to answer your question, Dan, this one, it's all to do with track. Much more certain that the track is going to be right over us. Now, if this were wintertime, I'd be very worried about this track because this track would probably bring warmth in off the Atlantic and give us rain rather than snow because the actual track is coming too close. But it doesn't matter this time of year. This is going to be, an all-rain event. So a stormy night ahead with heavy rain and strong winds. I'm expecting, Dan, 2 to 3 inches of rain overnight tonight. So it is going to be quite a good storm.
And again, the wind velocity, what do you see as far as that's concerned?
All right, we've got the highest sustained wind I saw was at 11 o'clock this evening. Now, this is sustained. For the Groton New London Airport, it had it out of the northeast at 32 miles per hour. So a sustained wind of that would certainly be able to produce gusts up in the 50 mile per hour range. So I would say that that's a possibility. As the storm is tracking out of New Jersey and toward Connecticut, some kind of easterly component, east or northeast component to the wind, maybe even southeast down in the Stonington, New London area. We could see, let's go with 15 to 35, potential gust 40 to 50 miles per hour from the east tonight. Now, what's going to happen tomorrow as the storm tracks up into New Hampshire, remember, we are counterclockwise around low pressure. So once it goes by, instead of getting an easterly component to the wind, we're now going to switch into a westerly component of the wind. So the rain will be shutting down on Thursday morning, and we'll see some scattered showers through the midday Thursday. But the thing you're going to really notice about Thursday's weather is the wind, very, very blustery. Remember now the storm intensifying as it goes from New Jersey to Connecticut to New Hampshire and then up into the Canada Maritimes, the storm intensifying. So I'm looking for just as strong a wind tomorrow, but this time coming from the other direction. Instead of coming from the east as it will tonight, the strong wind tomorrow will come from the west. So just the opposite situation. But then I've got some great news when we finally get to Friday and the weekend.
Okay, and we'll get to that in just a moment. But what conditions are out there leading to the formation of this other low off of what you said, the Virginia coast?
Right. It's over Virginia right now, Dan. And it's expected to undergo what we call a negative tilt in the atmosphere. That means that the upper levels of the jet stream, instead of being oriented with longitude, like say in a north-south fashion, is more negative, pointing, say, from southeast to northwest. And when an upper level feature takes on this negative tilt, storms often go through rapid intensification. Everyone's heard the terminology bombogenesis.
Right.
So, in other words, Genesis from the Bible, the birth of a meteorological bomb or a big storm. So there's a criterion for in the National Weather Service lingo for calling something a storm that's bombing out. But, certainly I think these terms have to be used in such a way that they don't scare people. It's just, we're going to have a big storm tonight. There's no question about it. But, saying the word bomb associated with it and things of that nature, I think sometimes the rhetoric goes a little bit over the top. So, I think we're in for a stormy night, very rainy, very windy, but I think we're all going to survive. I don't think, there's going to be devastation or anything like that. So sometimes I think these terms such as bomb, cyclone, kind of get these feelings like something very terrible is going to happen. And it is going to be a bad storm. There's no question about that. But I think we can kind of cut back on the rhetoric a little bit.
Thank goodness for that. Now, let me ask you, you mentioned the weekend. Let's look ahead to the weekend. What does it appear to be?
Yeah, well, once we get past this low up in Nova Scotia on Friday, Dan, it's still going to be a breezy day on Friday, no question about that. But I think we're going to see a good deal of sunshine as well. But on Friday, as we watch the low depart, we're watching high pressure advance from the Great Lakes all the way down to Kentucky. And by Saturday morning, The center of that high pressure system will be over eastern Virginia, and then it will start to push offshore on Sunday. But with the high right on the eastern seaboard, it looks like we're in really good shape for the weekend. I would say sun-splashed skies both Saturday and Sunday. We're in for a nice warming trend, only in the 50s tomorrow, very blustery, windy in the 50s, kind of 60-ish on Friday, and then starting to push on up into the 60s, especially as we head into the day on Sunday. Now, early next week, we're going to watch low pressure approach from Minnesota. That low is going to take a track, I think, primarily through southern Canada. And what we're going to see here is not so much the storm, but the fronts. First coming through will be Tuesday. A strong warm front will sweep through, and that's going to be accompanied by showers, I think, late Monday night and Tuesday. And then Wednesday, the strong cold front associated with that low is going to sweep offshore. So the synopsis is we've got the big storm coming tonight and Thursday, the storm loosening its grip on Friday, high pressure in command over the upcoming weekend, and then we watch the next frontal system from the west coming in early next week.
You know, it's interesting, Brad. It seems as if we've been getting these warm fronts sweeping through. They only last for a day or two, but every time you think, well, this is the last day we're going to reach 70 or 72 or 73 this year, along comes another one of these fronts to give us at least one warm day. What's that all about?
Yeah, I this frequently happens, Dan, especially when we've got the storms moving by to our west and we get on the warm side of them. You will see the warm front come through, but this time we've got it pegged for Tuesday. The warm front will come through. It'll only be brief. So, you see this more and more as we head into the winter time. There are some times when a mega storm is going to go, say, up the St. Lawrence River Valley, and meteorologists will be talking for days on TV about how it's going to be up near 60 or something. Yeah, it's up near 60, but for like 1 hour. The warm front comes in and it goes up to 60, and then all of a sudden, right on its heels is the cold front. Well, as the jet lowers through Canada and the storms get closer and closer, and then obviously in the winter the storm track many times is south of us, you get things happening really quickly as they're flying along the jet stream. The jet stream is defined as the river of air that moves all the systems on the Earth's surface, but it moves them quickest when you're right in the direct current, when you're right in the strongest part of the jet stream. So it looks to me as though just the fact that it's autumn and we've got these storms a lot closer to us, and then in winter they move at mega speed with the jet either on us or just off to our south.
By the way, we have not forgotten about our long-range winter forecast. We've put it off a couple of weeks, but it's going to be coming our podcast audience's way before the month of October is up, correct?
Yes, correct, Dan. I spoke this morning, Wednesday morning, October 16th at Eversource, and I spoke to a great group of retirees. And I gave them my synopsis. So if you know any retirees at Eversource, you can kind of maybe pick their brain and see what they have to say about my winter forecast. But I have not completed it yet, but it will be complete certainly by the end of the month. We're going to have the countdown clock put on bradfieldweather.com and all of Dan's social media, all of my social media. No one's going to miss when this winter forecast is coming out. But I do promise you it will be out prior to November 1st. It will be out prior to November 1st. So we will definitely issue the winter forecast later in this month of October.
Okay, and again, as a synopsis, what does our immediate forecast look like?
All right, Dan, it's for rain developing this afternoon. This is Wednesday afternoon, October 16th. I think the timing of the rain is maybe 4 p.m. to 8 p.m., something like that, from southwest to northeast across our state. Overnight, it will be stormy with rain heavy at times. I cannot rule out 2 to 3 inches of rain, so a very beneficial soaking coming in overnight tonight. Now, with this storm sort of bombing out, the old bombogenesis thing taking place, I certainly think thunder is a possibility tonight, too, as the storm is directly overhead. Mid-40s to low 50s. For Thursday, rain will be tapering to showers. It looks mostly cloudy, very windy, blustery day. Temperatures in the 50s for Thursday. Friday looks partly sunny. We're going to go 56 to 62. Saturday, beautiful sunshine, 58 to 64 across the state. Sunday looks sunny with temperatures in the 60s. Monday, I think sun giving way to increasing clouds, temperatures in the 60s, and it looks like showers coming in on Monday night and Tuesday. And again, Dan, that's associated with that fast-moving warm front. So obviously you're listening to the podcast, and Dan and I thank you for that. But you can always get a daily forecast update at bradfieldweather.com.
Terrific. Well, Brad, stay safe, and we'll have our next podcast next week unless something comes up. And, we'll do something if there's an emergency of some sort. But other than that, we'll have our next podcast next week. So you and Sandy and your family and our audience have a great next few days, including our weekend.
Sounds good, Dan. You and Susan and our audience, I hope, have a terrific weekend as well.
Thank you. The Bradfield Weather Podcast has been brought to you by Action Carpet of Simsbury and Sinnott Travel of Waterbury. And as always, thanks for listening. Okay, Brad.